In the city of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, at the feet of the Great Smoky Mountains, is an amazing museum that houses a rare collection of ancient Bibles, manuscripts, and unique artifacts. Today, I'm being given a private tour of the museum, and I'm taking you along for the ride with me.
Well, everybody, we are here on the first ever on-the-ground field trip, if you want to call it. We're in the heart of Tennessee in Pigeon Forge with Mr. Gene Albert, the owner of the Tennessee Bible Museum, and this is really, really fantastic. So thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
So could you tell me a little bit about your interest in really collecting all of this? How did this come about? How long have you been doing it for?
It's been 40 years of collecting rare Bibles all over the world and selling them all over the world. When I say a rare Bible, usually $1,000 or more. Some of them get quite pricey. Last year, in March of last year, the most expensive Bible sold in the history of the world. It sold in New York City at Sotheby's auction house, $36 million. You won't see that Bible here.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't bid $1 on that, but $36 million.
I would have bid just $1 just to say I bid on it. I've started collecting myself. I have the nerve to call it a museum, and I guess some people would consider it more of a collection. But I have a YouTube channel, and they don't, so I call it a museum. And they can just deal with it.
There you go.
When you start, it's hard to stop because everything you see, you kind of want it. We're surrounded by awesome stuff, but what are some of the things that are your favorite, the things you like pointing out the most, that have the neat stories? And
well, the museum tour is 7 rooms, and we're in the first one. It's the Hebrew-Greek room. Well, you know why. Everybody knows why. Hebrew and Greek, Old Testament Hebrew, New Testament Greek. Right behind you and behind me is a Torah scroll from 1870. Now, this is what the Jewish people still use today in their synagogues. They'll pull one of these out on Saturday morning. They use the old ones, but they have the new ones also. This is 1870. This is on lambskin, Josh. You can feel that. Now, the Jewish people will never touch the animal skin. So, and if there was a Jewish person here, I wouldn't do it in honor of them. But it's all about tradition, nothing in the scriptures about it. So this one here, lambskin, one lambskin's only going to be that long. So there's 32 lambskins in this one, and there's how they're sewed together with a thread.
yeah, I can see the segments.
Yep. And here's the thread here on the back. This is a thread would have been from a kosher animal, a clean animal. So this one rolls out a pretty standard size, 100 feet long.
Oh yeah,
100 feet, 32 lambskins.
You have to have a very large pulpit.
Oh yeah. There's no way, and you know the Torah is the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of Moses, and the word Torah means to teach, to show the way and guidance, and don't we all need that today? So,
Is it now? So Hebrew is written left to right, correct?
Yeah, right.
Or right to left.
Right to left.
I still have to hold up my hands to determine which one is which.
That's right. It starts over there at the very end of that, and I'll tell you, when you're in Genesis over here, there's no easy way to get to Deuteronomy fast because it's going to take a while to roll this and to roll that. You can imagine 20 minutes probably to get from one end to the other. Now they will use other animal skins. They're not only on lambskin, but this is red deer skin. Red deer is very common. This is just a portion of a Torah, but the old red deer skin is very, very soft, isn't it? And subtle.
It's very soft. Yeah.
This is a special Torah. I mean, all of them are special, but this one is special. It was used in World War II in Czechoslovakia in a synagogue. And a friend of mine purchased it in Israel years later. But what happened is when the Nazis took over Czechoslovakia, they conquered the place, and they took all the old scrolls out of all the synagogues. Thank goodness they didn't burn them. Several were burned, but most of them were confiscated and taken to a large cathedral in Prague and stored there.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, there's a neat story behind the whole thing.
It has a stamp right here. That's That's the stamp of the number. It had numbers on it. They numbered these and inventoried them.
That is cool. So yeah, so this is the stamp. Would this have been given to them by the Germans?
By the Germans, yes.
Wow, I mean, that makes the entire story,
it takes it up another level.
That's really cool.
This is the second room of the museum tour, and this is the Latin room.
All right.
Latin ruled the world for 1,500 years. Our English Bible, as you'll find in the next room, is only 500 years old. Tyndale printed it in 1526. Next year's the 500th anniversary. That's a long time, but nothing like this Bible. This Bible, 1,500 years ruled the world. So this is the Latin room, and this is the person responsible for the Latin Bible. Let me turn around here. This is Jerome.
He wasn't much of a man,
No,
I see.
he was just a small person.
Okay, all right.
But look at it. This Jerome was one of the top early scholars of the early church. The year 370, after 370 years after Jesus rose from the dead, Jerome was a leader of the church at that time. He knew 3 languages better than anybody else: Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. So this man is not something like you, Josh, all those languages you have.
Just brilliant.
Yeah, really. But he was a high IQ person. Jerome, he has a long first name, but nobody pronounces it, so everybody knows him by Jerome. You're pretty famous.
I didn't know he had a first name. To be honest, Jerome, I thought was his first name.
Right,
so.
okay. Well, Jerome, he knew those 3 languages better than anybody else, and he's the one that's going to do the translation work from the Hebrew and Greek into Latin for the first time. So Jerome's Vulgate, that's what it's called. The Vulgate means common or ordinary, and the common ordinary language of the day was Latin. So this is a Latin-speaking Bible. This is the Latin room, so you're going to see all these Latin Bibles in here, Josh.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and even today, people say Latin is a dead language, and it technically is because nobody really speaks it as a first language, but it's still the language of science. All of our scientific names, and creatures and animals and such have Latin names, so it still finds its place, its influence is still very much in effect. So
that's right. So because this Bible lasted the longest, here's you're going to see the oldest Bibles. This Bible here is 1482. This Bible has a printed in 1482. Now, here's what I like to say when I'm giving the tour in here. 1482, Josh, this was a Bible before Columbus discovered America in 1495. 1492. This is 1482. Excuse me, I said 40. Just look at this. Look at the inside of this. This is the book of Daniel. Isn't that something?
That is awesome.
I want you to do something. Feel that paper.
All right, I'll be very careful. Yeah.
This has a lot of cotton in it, cotton rag paper, because if this was wood pulp, like early American Bibles, they fall apart after 200 and 300 years.
Right.
This will last a long time. It's almost like our dollar bill. It has linen and cotton infused into it at the paper mills.
Yeah.
Look at that. The Book of Daniel, isn't that beautiful?
That is awesome. So this would technically be what's called an incunable.
Incunable, right. The incunable period. Incunable meaning cradle, or the cradle of printing, from 1455 when Gutenberg printed up until 1499. That's the incunable period.
Yeah, and I see it now. I wonder if the people at home could see there. This is the red wording. That's rubrication, correct?
Yes, that's done by hand. They printed the black ink only on these.
Okay. Now, how does that differ from illumination? Because I know I've heard of the illuminator and the rubricator.
The illumination is going to have much more color to it and much more glare, like a gold,
Gotcha.
Look to it.
So they'd add all like the flowery stuff onto the page, but the rubricator, he's highlighting
an artist with one color.
Yeah. That is really awesome. How much, if you don't mind, how much would something like that go for?
This is a 4-volume set. It's $75,000.
Wow. Well,
it's a good deal. Let's make a deal.
Absolutely.
You can pay for it after the.
You can take the camera.
Okay, all right. Okay.
That is amazing. That is really awesome.
Yeah, 1482, 14. Now this is the oldest Bible we have. It's been rebound because this is very unusual for the leather to still be holding on there after all those years. This has been rebound. But this is the first quarto Bible, called a quarto because it's 1/4 the size of a folio Bible.
Right, yeah.
These big folios like this, you see this is 1/4 the size of that, and they call that the folio paper. This is 1/4 of it, so they call it the quarto Bible.
That's neat.
This is the second quarto Bible ever printed on a press. This is printed in Venice. But look at that. There's the book of Leviticus.
Yeah. I really do like Latin because it makes me think that I can read it. whenever you see words like
Yeah.
Leviticus,
Yeah.
like, oh, that,
Yeah, some of that, some of it is the same, and there. Some of it's different too. So here's the, let's see, there's the book of Romans. They tried to,
yeah, ad Romanos. Now, see, I could still guess.
Yeah, you could guess that.
I would really guess that that's the book of Matthew.
Yeah.
That is really awesome.
So this Bible here, these Bibles are all Latin Bibles. Look at this, Josh. This is the largest. This thing is a big folio Bible, called folio because of the size. This would have been on the pulpits of the churches. Now, this is all original leather on here. Underneath the leather is oak boards.
Yeah.
And that is a very big pulpit Bible.
So how old is that then?
Early 1600s,
That's
early
neat.
16. And this would have been on the pulpits. It almost looks new. Why? Because it was not used as much. It was preached out of, and it wasn't moved a lot because it's 35 pounds. You don't want to be lifting.
Yeah.
This is a page from a Bible from the 1250s.
Wow.
This is on vellum. You can feel that. This is not paper. This is now that you touched it, I'm going to tell you where it came from.
Okay.
It came from the stomach lining of animals.
Oh, wonderful.
Vellum will last. Don't
Handle
worry,
it
it's
every
clean
day.
today. Yeah, clean it. But can you imagine? Look at that. This is work by a scribe, written by a scribe by hand.
It looks like it was printed. Like it's that perfect.
It is.
You know,
These people were machines. I mean, really, you can only say, and God gave them the ability to do this and the desire.
Well, I mean, at the time, ordering a book, to have a book be ordered and produced for you if you were a wealthy person, it was like getting a specially made car.
Oh,
you know,
yes.
it was a luxury item
A
almost.
luxury item, definitely. The average person couldn't read back then, or the times we're talking about. But then later on, you're right. They were so valuable. We're in the third room now. We're in the English room. We finally made it to something we are familiar with.
Seeing things that I recognize.
Yeah. This person is very important to you and I. This gentleman is John Wycliffe.
Wow.
You know, you've heard of John Wycliffe? He was a preacher in London, England in the 1370s. He had a church. He had the St. Mary's Parish at Lutterworth, it's called. He was a preacher, but you know what? Well, you know, everybody prior to Luther was a Catholic. Everybody was Catholic, and there wasn't any Baptist churches then. There wasn't any Presbyterian or Lutheran, or there weren't any Pentecostals. They were all Catholics. This man is a born-again Catholic who loved the Lord and loved the Word of God. And he said, God put it in my heart to do a Bible in the English language. Now, 1370s in London, more people are speaking less people were speaking Latin and more people were speaking Middle English, the beginnings of English. But he was preaching in Latin, and what happened was, he said, I have to explain another hour after church. What am I even saying? They didn't understand it.
He's translating himself.
Yeah, right, exactly. So Wycliffe is the first preacher to preach in English. He's the first preacher to write the Bible out by hand. This is before the printing press, of course. So all his Bibles are handwritten out. There's approximately 200 of them left in the world today.
Wow.
The last one sold 4 years ago in Sotheby's in New York City for $1.7 million.
Yeah, I bought it.
Yeah, I wish you would have. I didn't know you then, or I would have got you and got.
I would have hooked you up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, $1.7 million.
My goodness.
So this is what they looked like. A friend of mine does the facsimile divisions of the Wycliffe Bible.
Yeah.
Now it's hard to come up and read Middle English. Look at that. Yeah, you can pick out some words, but it's very hard. Yeah.
Are yet John to me to ally been among
Yeah. Middle English is not something.
This may as well be Greek.
It's not Latin or Greek or Hebrew. This is a bust of William Tyndale. He's called the father of our English Bible. He's called that for a reason. This man here enters Oxford at 14 years old. Now, I know he's up there with your IQ,
Right, yeah.
Josh. You could probably get in there.
Maybe 17, but yeah, just
14 years old at Oxford. I can't even, 14, I don't even know what I was doing, but 14 years old, he goes to Oxford, then he gets additional training at Cambridge. When he gets out of Cambridge, he knows 7 languages: Hebrew and Greek, Spanish, Italian, French, German, and Latin. Is that a genius or what? This man, and he was fluent in these languages. He just didn't say he knew them. He knew them. When he spoke French, you thought he was from France.
yeah. You couldn't tell if it was not his actual first language.
Exactly.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, this man is a genius. And I'll show you, Josh, right here. These are sayings of Tyndale. These are 485 years old. These are all Tyndale sayings, and I'll show them to you one at a time. But these are sayings that you're going to understand, and so are your viewers. And they've heard them before. A drop in the bucket. Have you heard that, haven't you? Isaiah 40. Here's one, a fly in the ointment. A labor of love from 1 Thessalonians. You preached on that probably or taught on it in Sunday school. A leopard can't change its spots, a sign of the times. At wit's end, by the skin of my teeth, in Job, cast your pearls before swine, eat, drink, and be merry. Fight the good fight, like a lamb to the slaughter, the blind leading the blind, the straight and narrow, and to fall by the wayside. You've heard every one of those.
All of these came from his expressions, basically.
These are Tyndale. And here's what happened. You say, why did I recognize these? Well, 100 years after Tyndale, we've already discussed it, a lot of his works ended up in the King James New Testament. They never finished the Old Testament, but a lot of the New Testament is Tyndale. October the 6th, 1536, they took him out after he was found guilty of heresy. What heresy? Because he translated the Bible into English and printed it on a printing press. That was his crime. He wasn't even allowed to talk at his trial. He was tied to a wooden stakes and burned to death at the age of 42. 42 years old, all he did. Look at his work over there. We talked about his translation work.
And it had such an impact on everything that came after. I mean, just imagine had he had just 10 more years.
10 more years. This man, a genius. I mean, a person that he's up there. He's up there at the top. You know,
words in our vocabulary that we use today. Words like atonement. You know.
Yes, right.
From him.
Yep.
People don't realize the gift they have, not just to open a Bible, but to open it and read it without looking over your shoulder.
Exactly.
I mean, used to, people might wait till the sun had set and light a candle in a private room and read it, so nobody could see them.
That's right. This is a famous old oil painting. This is just a copy of it, but it's a nice one. It's the grandfather reading the granddaughter the Bible, and what they're doing, they're surprised. You know why? Somebody was knocking at their door, and they were afraid because they're reading the Bible in English. It was illegal to do this. This is a famous oil painting reproduction of people reading their Bible and somebody knocking on the door, authorities possibly, to take you away and burn you at the stake, just like Tyndale.
So this is a rather impressive bookshelf, that I might say.
There's a lot of history here, Josh, a lot of history. This is the Bible of the Pilgrims. Now, we're talking about English Bibles. We're still in the English room. Every pilgrim would have had one of these. It's also called the Geneva Bible. It has a lot of nicknames. The Geneva, because you know why it's called Geneva? Because our forefathers fled England because of Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary was on the throne. You've heard of her. She killed 300 Protestant ministers during her 5-year reign, tortured them, burned them at the stake, and put them on torture devices. So after she came to the throne and did that, if you lived in England and you were a preacher and your neighbor preacher got burned at the stake, guess what you're going to do? You're going to get out of town and go to Geneva. That's what they did. By the thousands they went there. John Calvin, John Knox, William Whittingham, others, pilgrim fathers and pilgrim leadership went to other places. Geneva was a free city-state, and you could do pretty much what you wanted to. You could print English Bibles there. They didn't care. But this was still illegal to print a Bible in England. That's why they fled England to do that and went to Geneva. This is the first mass-produced Bible, Josh, that had printed 500,000 or more, 500,000.
Are these all
These are all Genevas.
Wow.
These look new, but these are not new. The Bible, the leather falls off of them. This is a 1602 Bible. Look at this thing. This is oh boy, look at that. This is a book of Romans right there. It's English font, a little harder to read.
But I mean, you can see like the commentary on the side. I mean, people loved that.
This is the first study Bible. The first study Bible with notes was the Geneva. And here's, now you see that dirt on there? It looks like dirt. You know what that is? That's from reading these under candlelight. That's the carbon from the candles coming on there. You don't want to get that. You don't want to clean that because that's part of the history of this Bible.
Exactly.
But this rebound, these start at around $2,000 and go up in price. So how many do you want?
About 4.
I'll ship them to you.
We'll
I'll
start
ship
with
'em to you.
4.
Okay,
then work
I'll
our
send
way
you a
up.
bill.
Okay.
These are all Genevas, but a very important Bible in the history of the English Bible. This is they ran this Bible parallel to a King James, which is next. King James Bible side by side, 7 out of 10 words are the same.
Wow.
7 out of 10. For instance, in some of the older Genevas, the older ones, the translations where they improved it, John 3:16 is the same as King James Bible.
Wow.
King James, John 3:16. Up here's King James in the middle. Now he did none of the translating work. He only authorized it.
Right.
You know that it's called the authorized version. But there were 54 translators of the King James Bible, and they took 7 years to produce it. 1604 they started. 1611 they finished.
So
Still the top seller of
So
all
Jerome, 23 years, then the King James translator, 7 years with all of them together. So.
Right, exactly. I didn't mention this, but you know how many Bibles are printed in the world in 1 year? It's hovered around the same for the last several years. It's 100 million Bibles are printed. 100 million. That's
awesome.
A lot.
That's
and
crazy.
out of those 100 million, 40% are King James Bibles.
Really?
So King James
Even
is
after
still,
414
after all
years.
all these years.
Wow.
We're in the unusual room, and these are unusual Bibles. They are what's called misprint Bibles. There's 100 famous misprint Bibles that people collect. Now let's just start with this one. They're misprints. All of them are out into the public and printed at one time. Nobody knows where they're at, so they can't recall them. This Bible here, 1795, 2-volume King James Bible, printed in London, all 4,000 copies printed. In Mark 7:27, it should say in the King James, it should say, "Let the children first be filled up." The mistake, 1 letter. Let the children first be killed. Now, from filling to killing, what would you say about that?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big mistake.
I don't know if we can put that out on the internet.
I know. Yeah, really. Don't go do what this says. You'll end up in jail.
Unfortunately, I know a few denominations that might like that Bible. So.
This one here is another famous misprint, 1610, one of those Genevas we spoke about in the other room. 1610 in John 6:67 is a small verse. It should say just this. In John 6:60, Jesus said to his disciples. This one, the mistake, Judas said to his disciples. Now, you can't get any worse than Jesus for Judas.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's that mysterious gospel of Judas everyone's been talking about for a long time.
That's right.
Can I see this real quick?
Oh, yeah,
this big one is staring me in the face.
Yeah, this one is. This is another famous misprint. It's called the Vinegar Bible, 1717, printed in London. Why is it called the Vinegar Bible? Well, look at this big thing, printed in London. 2,500 copies of this was printed. Up Luke chapter 20 should say the parable of the vineyard. What does this one say?
The parable of the vinegar.
Vinegar. There's no such thing as a parable of the
That's,
vinegar.
yeah.
That's a big misprint. And like I say, these Bibles were all printed, all out into the public. They couldn't recall them.
Yeah.
So these are collectible Bibles.
When you're setting in letters, though, in a printing press, sometimes one at a time, sometimes entire words, but and it's in reverse, right? You have to print it in reverse to get it to show up.
Yeah,
so
the typesetting was a tedious job.
It's just easy to miss a word. But when it happens, sometimes the wrong person gets blamed. I think, what was it, Robert Barker, when he printed the King James Bible the first time, the famous misprint, which is the he, she, swap and Ruth.
Right.
I believe enough of those happen and shall commit adultery instead of shall not. I think that resulted in him losing his printing license, or at least his official
Yes, it did. That gentleman that printed the worst misprint of all time, leaving that out. And some people say it was a joke among the typesetters because it's too much to think you left that out completely. But who knows? It's a lot of speculation there. But it is the worst one. They imprisoned the gentleman that owned the printing business. They threw him in jail. They also took sledgehammers and destroyed his presses. So they took this very serious, a serious misprint. Josh, we're in the American room.
Okay, it's my room.
You know, with all these Bibles and all these stories, this tour could last
Long
A
time.
long time. I mean, some of the people that helped me, Dr. Jonathan, he could go on, and so could we. So, but we have to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
But this is the American room, and this Bible is very important. I want to show it to you. It's not. It looks very unimpressive. It's not a very impressive Bible. It's just a little New Testament. It's called a Frontier Bible. This was printed in St. Louis, Missouri, and it's the first Bible printed west of the Mississippi River. Missouri, St. Louis is where the wagon trains would stop and fill up with all their things. It's called the Wagon Train Bible. Poor quality paper, printed in America in St. Louis. It's fallen apart. You can see that.
We know how to mass produce things.
Exactly.
That is a very American thing.
It's very, yeah, right. And it's that wood pulp paper that we talked about without linen and cotton into it. So this is old. This will fall apart in another 100 years. It'll be gone. But this is where they crossed the river, and they crossed the Mississippi River in this thing. And this was the first Bible printed west of the Mississippi River. It's the first little New Testament. Here's a lot of the things. First Bible printed in the state of Missouri. The first Frontier Bible. It's called a Frontier Bible because people were going west in these. But that's the St. Louis. That's the Frontier little New Testament. Very rare. This thing looks like it's not worth anything, but this is a $6,000 or $7,000 Bible.
Wow.
So if you go to St. Louis yard sales, pick some of these
really
up
cool.
for me.
Yeah,
Next
time I'm there. Yeah, it's amazing though. I mean, the book built our country. Like it has informed the education and the spiritualization of the world, of the Western world specifically. But I mean, people misunderstand. At the same time that people were in London, you know, in fancy clothes, hearing plays by Gilbert and Sullivan, or musicals rather.
Right.
There were people at the exact same point in history, in wagons, choosing to cross into you know, just savage areas.
Those little New
That's all they
Testament,
had, and it built our education. You know, and that's why all these people in mountain regions back in the day had biblical names. Why are you naming your kids Jedediah and Rehoboam? It came from the book.
The history here is absolutely incredible. We spent over an hour walking around and talking about the stories behind our Bible. It was an experience that I highly recommend. The next time you come to Pigeon Forge, be sure to visit the Tennessee Bible Museum. Take the tour and check out their rare bookstore. And tell Gene I said hi, and that I'm still waiting on those Geneva Bibles to arrive.